Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewired to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewired to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewired to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am as excited as always to be jumping on the mic with you all for episode number 78. That is crazy to say. We're almost to 80, which again, I say in the last couple of episodes, it's just been crazy to reflect since I started this podcast a year and 2 months ago, and it was Tiny Talks, and I just never really knew where this journey was going to go. And so the fact that we are now on our way to 100 episodes is just crazy. So thank you guys for sticking with me. Thank you guys for tuning back in. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I am so happy to have you here, and I welcome you here with open arms. On this podcast, we talk about all things mental health, self-love, inner child work, discovering your purpose, working on a fixed mindset, and really just covering all topics in between that can really relate to bringing new awareness and becoming the best version of ourselves, because I realize that there is a large gap between awareness and mental health and what we're taught. And unless we are actively going out and seeking to learn these things or have a curiosity about them or we've studied them, we can really go our whole life without realizing these things. And it's often disempowering to not realize why we are the way that we are and why we respond to things the way we respond. And so my goal is to always just allow you to not feel alone and know that who you are and as you are is amazing and beautiful. And how can we build from that? And how can we continue to make you the best version of yourself while also honoring and being trauma-informed along the journey? So nonetheless, you guys, welcome. I'm so excited to dive into number 78. And today's episode is kind of piggybacking on Tuesdays about attachment styles, but not really. Today, I wanted to chat about things that you must discuss in your relationships, and specifically in your intimate relationships. Because as I was really brainstorming for today's episode and I was sitting there, I'm like, most of my relationships in the past, prior to the one that I'm in right now, have kind of just been very go with the flow. I was obviously attracted to those people, obviously felt some kind of a spark, or I wouldn't have been with them. But I'm thinking back and I'm like, we really didn't have deep conversations or really working on ourselves. And I get that I was younger, and I'm going to be 24 tomorrow, so I can pretty much officially say I'm 24 now, so I'm still young. However, through most of my relationships, they were very just go with the flow. And if somebody did something I didn't like, it was immediately a reflection of them. And I would also reverse that and feel like I had to internalize their behavior. And there was just always a lot of internal conflict of feeling like I'm not understood, feeling like I don't understand them, feeling like we don't really get along at certain times, not really a lot of communication. And a lot of the times I just wasn't fulfilled, and I never really knew why that was. And so I'm realizing now, because I'm in the best relationship that I've ever had been in my life, I'm like, what's different? What's changed? Because anytime that we've noticed a shift or anytime we notice something's different, it's important that we contemplate and we ask ourselves why that is, especially if we've noticed a big difference, whether good or bad, because in both instances, we need to get that awareness so we can figure out where it's stemming from. But I realized that the reason in which my relationship now is going so good and is so strong is because we've built that foundation of trust and openness and mutual understanding. And we've done that through the things that I'm going to share with you all today, of the things that you must discuss in your intimate relationships, especially if you want them to be as healthy and flourishing as possible. because we can get into relationships for all different types of reasons, right? We can either get in a relationship because we just don't want to be alone. We can get in a relationship because we really care about someone. We can get in a relationship because we just feel like that's what we're supposed to do, right? There's so many reasons and instances in which we would enter an intimate relationship. But I think that if you're at the point in your life where you're looking at a life partner, you're looking at, setting up a healthy relationship and something long term, I truly think that without having and doing these things I'm about to break down, it's really easy to fade apart, because without having awareness and understanding, you're always just going to feel like something's missing. And I think that we think relationships are just supposed to be this easy thing all the time, and we think that we just are supposed to know how to go about relationships, when in reality, if you think about it, we're not really taught any of this. There's no 101 relationships class when we go to school. This is stuff that we have to proactively be willing to look for and to try to figure out. And the list that I'm going to share with you is things that I've kind of learned over the span of my life, and of also witnessing other people in my life. And me and my partner have done relationships coaching before, which was really, really amazing, and also deepened our understanding of each other. And I think that anytime you can do couples therapy or couples coaching, it's not about, you don't really do those things when there is an issue. Well, you do, but it's also so good to do those things proactively. Why are we so okay with relationships just kind of going with the flow, and as soon as there's a hiccup or a disagreement, we just call it quits? Relationships take work, especially if you care and you want them to last. And so I'm going to share with you guys some things that I think must be discussed in your intimate relationships in order to allow them to flourish to the best of their possible capability, and for both parties involved to feel seen, heard, and understood. So the first thing, which is everything that I chatted about on Tuesday's episode. So if you haven't checked out that episode number 77, it's all about why it's so important to know your attachment style. But that is the first thing, of course, that I have for you guys today. For things you must discuss is your attachment style. Figure out how you respond to certain things. Figure out how you react to certain things. What do you need when there's confrontation? What do you need when there's an issue? What do you need when there's a fight? What do you need when you're triggered, right? Figuring out those things allows the other person to be able to support you to the best of their ability based off of what you're telling them. But if we're not able to know for ourselves, what our attachment style is, how are we going to be able to communicate that with the other person? And if we can't communicate that, and that person is just always feeling like they can never support you in the right way, it might just be that you don't even know what you need in those moments. And so it's so important that we take the time to get to know ourselves of what we need. Because I know when I get out of my last 3-year relationship, I took time to just be by myself and learn those things about myself, so I was able to communicate them. I did most of this work a year ago, was the first time I really learned about any of this stuff. And I'm telling you with every ounce of me that knowing your attachment style and knowing what you need in those times is so, so, so helpful. Now, again, that person has to be willing to support you with that, because you can express that you need X, Y, and Z, but if that person is not able to meet that and give that to you, that is a whole other conversation in which you get to have of saying, okay, well, maybe this person isn't really the best for me if I don't feel like they can support me with what my needs are, because we're all valuable and worthy to be in relationships and to be with people that care and understand and are willing to at least try their best to give us what we need, and vice versa. We also have to be willing to give that to our relationships in return. So that is my first thing for you guys. The next thing, kind of stemming off of that, is to ask your partner how you can support them. Whenever there is something off or wrong or not going right, or there's frustration or whatever, asking how you can support them. Allow them to communicate and tell you what they need in those instances. We try to figure it out for them and do what we think is best. And we often express what we would want in return, even though it's not always what that person wants. So you have to be willing and open and honest with your partner to be able to ask how you can best support them, right? Number 3, ask yourself when you're triggered if it has anything to do with the past. So anytime we get triggered, The reason a trigger exists is because at some point in our life, something has caused it to be there. Something has happened that has told your mind and your body, this equals danger, equals sadness, equals anger, equals whatever. It equals we need to get out of here. So anytime there's an issue, we have to be willing to ask ourselves, am I fully triggered based on this situation? Or is it possible that I'm also still carrying the weight of some of my past relationships? And that's something that we have to be willing to share with our partners again over time. But I was able over time to share with my partner that, I had been lied to a lot in my past relationships. I've been cheated on more times than I can count. I've been crossed over more times than I can count. I've been with people that can get really angry and unpredictable. And so, of course, I had to express that at times I'm fearful of that. And anytime that I feel that anxiety or I'm feeling fearful or envious, I ask myself, is this the whole weight of this person to carry? Or are there parts of me right now that are coming up based on past relationships? We see this a lot with trust, right? We trust someone and then they maybe do something or don't do something, but a part of us is like, hey, they're probably hurting us, so we have to get ready. And so we get defensive and we're very quick to lash out and put all that onto our current partner. But what if the current partner really does, it's not their responsibility to carry the weight of that. And again, this is why doing self-work and working on ourselves prior to getting into relationships is so important, because we have to make sure that we're not transferring past trauma onto other people, especially if they're not the ones that caused that harm in the first place. And so just making sure that you're able to ask yourself when you're triggered or overwhelmed, is this something that feels so heavy because I've had to feel it in the past? And being able to express and open that up with your partner, because I think that without those conversations, you can feel really alone. And so it's good to be able to say, hey, I'm triggered right now. I'm realizing a lot of it's probably coming from my past, but I just wanted to let you know that it's not my intention. And you're just able to have a more open dialogue about those things instead of just getting angry and shutting down and your partner wondering what the heck is wrong and feeling like they did something wrong. The fourth thing is to identify what each other's love languages are. How do you like to be loved? How do you like to show love? And this kind of goes across the board. Figuring out your love languages is so helpful in all regards of life. But if you're able to express that, I love quality time, I love physical touch, I love acts of service, I love in the order of importance in which those are, your partner is able to understand the way in which to love you. Because I think, again, that piece of just, going off the fly and going with the flow, if we don't actually know how somebody likes to receive love, we might be feeling like we're pouring out of our cup and pouring and pouring and giving, and like they're still not happy and fulfilled. But oftentimes what's happening is we're loving and pouring out of the ways that we would maybe want love and we would expect that, but that's maybe not what that person needs, right? And so getting to know what your partner needs specifically and individually will allow you on the other end to be able to give that as best as possible. And even in my current relationship right now, physical touch is way higher on his love language priority than it is on mine. In fact, for me, that's like the last thing. I'm not a very touchy person. I'm not a cuddly person. Really, I just get very reserved and protective, and that does come from my attachment style. And his is very lovey-dovey, very romantic, etc. And for a while, we really crashed on that because he was wanting more physical touch, and for me, that was very overwhelming. So we were able to have those hard conversations and work through that of, where does that come from? What can I do in those moments? And just building that foundation together instead of allowing it to kind of just happen in the back burner and beginning to feel like you're not getting your needs met, when if that person doesn't actually know how to love you, they could actually be really wanting to and really wanting to try and put in the work, but if they don't know how, they could be feeling like they're giving a lot and not getting anything in return if that landed. So the next thing, number 5, figuring out what your beliefs and values are and communicating that with your partner. And this, I'm just going to kind of lump number 5, 6, and 7 together. Getting to know your beliefs and values, getting to know your goals, and getting to know your triggers. These are all things that we need to figure out, A, for ourselves first, but B, to communicate. If your partner doesn't know what your beliefs are and they're doing something that's completely against that, you're always going to take that personally and feel like they're disrespecting you. Same with our values. What are your goals? If you're not communicating your goals, how do you expect your partner to be able to support you to their full capability? Your triggers, if you're not able to express what your triggers are, how is your partner ever going to know what your triggers are and why you're maybe responding a certain way at certain times? And then the last one is, what is your go-to when you're triggered? So this is really directly correlated off of our attachment styles, but what is your go-to way to respond when you're triggered? What are you needing in those moments? Are you communicating that with your partner? Do you guys have that mutual understanding of when one of you is triggered, you're able to say, hey, I'm triggered right now. You know what that means. I know what that means. So we're just going to kind of, without basically unwritten rules, but that doesn't happen until you have those hard conversations and really get honest with each other, which I know takes time and it takes trust, but through these conversations, they're so worth having because they build so much more safety and foundation to feel safe and to feel that trust. So really today's episode is just to highlight that relationships can only grow to the extent in which we learn and which we communicate. And without these things that I've listed, these 8 things, it can be really hard to feel truly seen, heard, and accepted from your partner because those are huge pieces of us. They're huge pieces of us internally that are bound to come out in our relationships. And we're worthy to be able to express those and to find someone in our life that accepts us for those and is willing to work with us for those, not against us, and vice versa. We have to be willing to accept those within somebody else. But when we're just going with the flow in our relationships and are often unfulfilled and understood, it's really only a matter of time until one of the two of you feels like it's just causing more work than it is, happiness. And so if you're serious about somebody that you're with, or maybe you're not in a relationship and you're wondering about moving forward, I just want to say flat out, relationships take work. They take hard conversations, they take hard truths, and they take getting to know each other at the core, not just on the surface. And the more that we can do that in the beginning of our relationships, the more that we're able to see how we're a fit for each other. So I hope that this just gives you the permission to maybe start with one of these things and bring it up to your partner. See if they're open to it, see if they're receptive to it. Because if it's very important to you that you have the best, healthiest relationship, it's important that we cover these things and we find someone who's willing to work on them with us. And I do know that these things can be overwhelming, can be traumatizing, can be hard to talk about, but there's no better person in the world to talk about that with than with our partner that cares about us more than anything in the world. So thank you guys so much as always for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I hope you guys are able to take some of these things, implement them into your relationships. And if you're not in a relationship, get to know those things within yourself. Get to know your attachment style. Get to know what your triggers are. Get to know what your beliefs and your goals and your love languages are, because that really gives us a lot of self-awareness. And with self-awareness, we're able to communicate more efficiently and better for ourselves. So thank you guys so much. All the love. Until next time. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.